My name is Richard Gonzalez, and I've been a full-time real estate investor for the last 10 years here in San Antonio. And today, we're starting our first podcast, Limitless Hustle. So today we have a special guest for our first episode. We have Carlos Pereira all the way from Houston, Texas. Carlos, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, so my name is Carlos and I've been in the new construction industry for the last 10 years. And for the past year, I've actually been getting my hands dirty and investing into the real estate market.
So Carlos, let me ask you a question. How do you transition from being in new construction to now being a real estate investor?
Well, new construction actually gave me a lot of knowledge and connections to investors. So I was firsthand seeing how these investors were making a lot of mistakes through construction and, just not seeing construction overall. And so I feel like I was that weakness that they had. And so I felt like it was the perfect piece for me to get myself into.
Perfect. How many new constructions projects did you do before you started getting into the investment side?
So between 2022 and 2023, I did over 200 doors.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I have been seeing some of your work. I see you do a lot of the, multifamily and big construction. What do you think is the average cost of these construction projects?
So for, do you mean like everything in total with the lot and everything? So lot acquisition, depending on the area, right? But let's say a multifamily lot acquisition for anywhere between 12 to 18 units in a prime location is going to cost anywhere between 800 to 1.3 million, 1.5 million. And then the build out for a multifamily, because of all of the code requirements, commercial requirements, etc., is going to run about $140 to build.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, those are definitely pretty big projects. We're not talking about $100,000 renovation here. So, that's the thing that impresses me about you. Even though you're young and getting started in the real estate side, you already and you already gotten your foot in and done a lot of work in the new construction, and your background. Your dad being a engineer, right? Yeah, civil engineer, and kind of being around that type of work. Since you were a kid. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, how was your background? What got you in construction, first of all?
Got it. So I came when I was a young kid, right? I was 10 years old, and my dad's like a huge figure to my life. I mean, he taught me a lot of the things that I know today, mainly just how to be a good individual and hustle, right? How to earn a good living. And so I always saw my dad, he became an entrepreneur a year after being an immigrant here, not knowing the language, not knowing the country, but he knew that he had potential in the engineering industry. So he figured out how to get a qualifier to qualify his company, and then eventually built his engineering brand. And so I was always around the plans, the permit expediting with the city, drawing them, and then actually working with contractors like myself today. And then, seeing these projects come to life from the plans that I was drawing to the actual construction, that's what made me fall in love. The first thing that made me fall in love with construction was that, seeing the plans that I drew to actual construction, and then, just seeing these general contractors and how they were making everything come to life. And so I told my dad I had huge interest into construction. I actually hated being in the office, like just drawing plans all day. It was boring, So being an active kid, I wanted to be out on the construction side. So I actually started painting houses when I was in high school. That's how I built my construction company. That was the first step. I started painting houses in high school, and then from there, doing minor remodels, kitchens and bathrooms for customers, until doing a large portfolio of luxury remodels in Miami, Florida, and then coming over here.
Wow, that's amazing. It seems like you were able to grow up around the construction, arena, the environment, ever since you were a young kid. So I think that's definitely a competitive advantage that you have, I think, versus anybody else, right? Like for me, I didn't have any construction experience. I tell people I had no construction legs 10 years ago. I had never done a project. So for me, I was coming into a arena that I had to just learn, basically by trial and error. Um, Obviously my strong suits were more into the management side. I have always managed um, sales teams, companies and that type of thing. So at least it helped me manage contractors, with basic fundamentals, meaning, I was able to be there at 8 in the morning. I was able to be there before they leave at, before 5 o'clock as an example, just to see what got done. And that's just basic 101, not even knowing anything in regards to construction. Eventually, obviously, with experience and making mistakes, you start picking it up and you get better at it.
Right.
So I think that's like I mentioned, that's one of the things about you, that you have that background and you can now take that to another level. So definitely, I think you're on the right track, especially on the investor side at this point. So let me ask you another question. I know we talked about it earlier. Where we're looking at some of our projects that we have here in San Antonio. What's been the fastest single family project that you have done so far?
So
From start to finish.
okay, so from start to finish, the fastest that I have ever built a home is actually 32 days. And that's with all inspections included. That's actually, it's a slab house, so it's not a pier and beam, which does add a little bit more inspection requirements. But I did hold a record in a company. Their name is SLS, which they also work with DSW and Stonewater Building Group. They're national companies, and I actually held a record for that company for building a house in just under 35 days. I got it done in 32 days. There's actually somebody now that beat that record.
Wow.
and built it in 30 days. So
Yeah.
it's impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing. And again, I would have never guessed 32 days. I don't even know how physically possible it is, but like again, so well, let me ask you that. How is that physically possible, right? To be able to get an entire project. How big was the project?
It was a single family
Okay.
home, so it was 1,400 square feet.
I mean, that's still pretty good, a good size.
3-2. Yeah.
Your normal 3-2, obviously wood construction, right?
Right.
Siding,
Siding, all siding, yeah.
perfect. So I mean, to be able to complete it in 32 days, that's amazing. Like now I have a new goal to try to hit myself. So obviously I'm doing more of the reconstruction, rebuilds, and we're doing them under 90 days, and that's already a milestone in itself. But
Right.
I got to commend you for that. That's amazing. I was not gonna guess 32 days. So
Thank you.
no, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. So let me ask you this. So besides the construction, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? In your career.
So one of my biggest passions, apart from construction, is actually helping people, right? So I don't know yet. I haven't planned it yet, but I definitely see myself going somewhere, routing myself into where I can provide value for others, and others can potentially grow from the value that I'm providing. So for sure, going towards the route of helping people, whether that is through real estate, through new construction. But I definitely want to do something that I can, just help others get to where their goals are, for sure.
No, it's awesome. I think eventually, like I mentioned to you, even what I do is not about you anymore.
Right.
You get to a point where, yes, you like making money. There's money involved, but it's not just about the money. And when I say about that, it's like you're helping others,
Right.
right? You're providing opportunities, job, food on people's tables, materials. There's actually a concept out there called the velocity of money. Like when you realize how the dollar gets transferred through so many channels, and from the lumber to this
Right.
to that, and it's amazing. Like once you actually start thinking about it in those terms, then it gives you a different perspective, because then you realize the value and the impact that you're actually making in the world,
Right.
right? Because we just think we're just fixing houses, but
Yeah.
reality, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many people involved from
Right.
the lumber guy, the guy that
Yeah.
brought all the materials, to the guy that's making it, cutting it, the guy that's in the forest. I mean,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to a friend the other day. He's a huge home flipper as well in Houston. He's killing it too. And he actually mentioned the fact, I didn't think about it, but we're actually helping people all the way from the beginning of the investment, right? So grabbing these properties off market, we're grabbing it off of a distressed seller, somebody who has a property that they don't know what to do with it, they're in debt, they owe taxes, etc. So now we're coming into their life and we're taking that property away from them. Yes, it's going to benefit us, but we're also benefiting them in the sense of, it's they no longer have debt, they no longer have tax or deed issues, etc. And then now we can go and help others as well throughout the construction process. And then one of the things too that I love about construction is when we build a product, like you said, we're not only helping other people, but we're also creating an experience as well. Like like me, I'm more on the new construction side, you're more on the short-term rental side. But as far as like what I love is I'm providing something that people are going to celebrate Christmas in, they're going to celebrate Thanksgiving, they're going to have parties that that they're going to call that their home, and I'm getting to put each and every stud in there, the drywall, the trim out. And so I take a huge pride, and each home that we build, I always tell my guys to treat it like if it's a home that they're going to live in.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. You see it from that perspective versus, like I mentioned, just building homes
Production.
and production. In reality, there's a bigger meaning. So let's take it a step back. So what's been one of your biggest challenge? You being now an entrepreneur, starting your own company. What's been some of the most important obstacles that you have came across?
So one of my biggest challenges is actually being in new construction so young, right? So when I opened up my business and I was pitching to investors to build new construction, they wanted to see, where's your experience? What homes have you built? Who have you worked for, etc. And I mean, in reality, I just had a concept and I was a project manager for a couple of companies, but I had never built a home under my company. I don't have any references other than other companies, etc. So basically, that was one of my big obstacles. Was I had to look out and see what friends could help me out and fight out for me when those investors called and stick out for me, knowing that they're good friends and knowing that they're also going to talk things that are true about me. And so that was definitely one of the biggest obstacles, was getting my first new construction job, with no background, but no projects under my company's belt.
Got it. And I think that for our viewers out there that are starting new construction or want to start their own company or service, I mean, that's going to be the very first challenge, right? Like you're on your first client. Hey, where's your reviews? Where's your recommendations? And you're like, shoot. You could call my mom and she'll give you a recommendation. That's basically all we got. So how did you overcome that?
Basically, I mean, I did have the experience, right? Yeah. So I had a concept, but I also had the experience of building for these other companies that I worked for. So like I said, I gave away, and I was always truthful. I always told them, hey, look, I worked for other companies and I can give you the phone numbers of these other guys that I built. And I have other friends as well that have invested into real estate, just not in this state, that I can give you their phone numbers, etc. And, just try to scramble it and just be truthful. At the end of the day, people are always going to appreciate honesty, right? If you try and scramble and say, oh, I did this and I did that, at the end of the day, they're going to figure it out because somebody else did this and somebody else did that. And, eventually people could find out the truth. So always be truthful, and honesty is going to get you very, very far when it comes to business.
Yeah, I think you hit a spot on. The key thing, even when you're getting started and you don't know all the answers, people respect the fact that somebody's honest, right? Right. Anybody else that knows you have value, you have the experience, but might not have it in your own, business.
Right.
Did you have to maybe negotiate a lower price? Did you have to give them a better deal.
For sure.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I had to sell myself almost for salary, minimum salary.
sure.
And I guess that's just. And my dad always told me it's always gonna be the first one, right? Once you got the first one, and it's so true, right? Like once I got that first project, now I sit down with any investor, and guess what? I have a project that I can take them to. I have an investor that's a reference that has been working with me that can talk about the experience that they've had so far, etc. And so the first one's always the hardest. Once you overcome the first one, then it's really up to your hustle to just make it boom, and go back to back to back and get more and more clients.
Yeah, I think that's the best approach. Even though you had to, do the project maybe for a little bit less, but you're seeing that as a catapult, to take you to the next level.
Right.
And now you have a success story, right, under your belt that you can piggyback off. So in essence, it's an investment, in yourself and in your business to be able to now have social proof that you actually completed a project. And then from there, it just snowballs into where you're at today, where you can you have a whole portfolio, you have completed projects, I mean, if somebody, like I tell people, if somebody wanted to, look me up or whatever the case may be, I mean, it's almost, I mean, just even searching the county records and it'd be like, look, I'm a buy and hold investor. I always tell that to people. And I'm like, when I talk to wholesalers, especially, they deal with a lot of investors that say they're going to buy a lot of properties.
Right.
So give me the best deals or bring me the deals. I'm the biggest buyer. And then all they have to do is really just search their name on the county records. They realize there's no transactions.
Yeah.
So in reality, there's no substance. And now I'm able to kind of tell somebody, check us out, see we're the real buyer. And then they're all in those areas that we operate in. So we are in essence the true buyer, right? And that's the same pitch I have for wholesalers. At the end of the day, somebody's still gonna probably get the deal and it's going to end up here anyways. So it's either we're going to, do the deal directly with the seller or the wholesaler, or eventually it's going to come in through an agent or somebody else. But it still comes back to the same source. Everybody is networked with the same buyers, and that's kind of what the social media and podcasting and everything has done for us, is to really put the word out there and let everybody know that we're focused on downtown San Antonio and the zip codes that we operate in.
Yeah.
So, no, that's great. How would you compare the market in Houston currently? Right now we're in 2025. From you working with investors and you investing yourselves, how would you compare it maybe to, obviously, San Antonio or Miami or wherever the case may be?
So, I mean, I don't know much about San Antonio, but I mean, just visualizing, right? I do see that new construction is a lot more of a boom over there. Like over there, you go to downtown and there's no such thing as a vacant lot within a 5-mile radius of downtown. If there is, you're paying a beautiful penny for it, in the millions of dollars. And then, so same thing, like I do notice that there is a huge new construction boom in Houston versus over here. I see that, you're killing it, for example, in the short-term rental versus over there. I don't see a lot of people doing short-term rentals. There's a few, and I know there's a few that are doing good, but it's interesting to see the different market demand in two different cities for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And again, obviously, we do a few strategies, short term, long term. Events. At the end of the day, whatever cash flows, I think that's the key. I was watching a podcast yesterday from a guy that has like, I don't know if he said 30,000 units or whatever the case may be, but it's the same. It's the same principles. At the end of the day, you get a property it's like a business. Every property needs to basically stand on its own, right? And be able to make money. So whether that's renting by the room, whether that's house hacking, whether it's putting an ADU. So it's learning to do the highest and best use for that particular property, right? Obviously, right now we're really big into the multi-units. So we're just trying to get to a certain number of properties in a shorter period of time. Obviously, the multi-unit strategy is going to be a lot faster than one at a time properties. So, that's just our focus. And, everybody out there knows whatever you focus on, you tend to attract and reach, right? If you're focused on the, working out and nutrition, well, then probably your physique's going to be a lot better than somebody that's not. Same thing with professional sports. So absolutely, I think that's probably the biggest difference. Here in San Antonio, I think San Antonio is still behind the curve in regards to the new construction. But we're seeing it, really boom in the last few years. Especially a lot of these historic homes, they're now getting tore down, especially the ones that are not in the historic zonings, and it's just better to rebuild it or build new. So that's what we're seeing in our marketplace. That's why you see a lot of vacant land out here. It's also because the city is also pushing people to either repair the properties, or they themselves will knock it down. So they'll give you 30 to 60 days for you to repair it. If you don't, well, then they're just going to knock it down and put a lien on your lot. So most of these lots that you see in the areas, especially around downtown, they probably have a $20,000 to $30,000 demo lien in there that the city just decided to say this is a condemned structure. It's an eyesore, and now we're trying to gentrify and bring up the city.
And is that ever an opportunity for you to grab properties? Like, do you ever look at the demo list that the city has and you say, hey, these are good properties, let's go take a look at them and try and buy them?
Yeah, I think right now there's more lots being sold or in the market or from wholesalers. So there's always a combination. Obviously, they know there's value now. So before, when I started buying vacant land. So before I got into the short-term rentals or long-term rentals, I started with vacant land. I had another business, and I was doing that for almost 10 years. So I ended up moving from California out here to Texas to expand that. So I had an office in Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, basically sales offices offering merchant services, which is, credit card services for small business. So they can actually accept, card payments.
Gotcha.
So now it's all terminals, it's all POS systems. You go to Starbucks, they flip the screen, it's a little keypad. Before, it was literally just a terminal on the side of a register. And there's still businesses that have those, but that was the main bread and butter. Eventually, the industry changed, and I had to pivot. Well, during that transition, I had a friend of mine that he was a real estate investor, but went bankrupt in the '08 crash, lost millions of dollars. This is somebody I grew up with and is the most successful guy that I personally know. And now he's living with me here in San Antonio. We're sharing a 1-bedroom apartment because he's broke, and he's living in the couch. And within 2 years, this guy is literally now rebuilding his wealth and his net worth, buying vacant land. And he keeps telling me, Richard, you got to get into this, man. This thing's about to blow up. This is, before a lot of the development that has happened here in San Antonio. And again, he was buying these vacant lands for pennies on the dollar, $5,000, $10,000, $10,000, $8,000. He bought a lot in front of my own eyeballs for $10,000. 2 years later, sold it for $120,000. So when I experienced that, that's when I realized, man, I don't know how this thing works. But I'm getting into it. And so I started buying vacant land too. Obviously, I didn't end up getting the $5,000 deals. He was sending me deals that he would pass on, but they were $20,000, $30,000. But I knew they were good deals because I was piggybacking off his experience. And absolutely, within 2 years, he had sold all his lots, and I did the same. I sold them also, and then used that money to now get into the
Right.
residential single family space. Obviously, I started flipping first, which I think what everybody tries to do in this business. And I mean, I just ended up losing almost 30,000. So, I think I mentioned it to you. So I literally lost 30 grand on my first project. Then I figured, you know what, let me take a step back. Let me figure out where all the mistakes I did. And also now, instead of flipping, try to do the rental, a rental. Because a rental, you can make mistakes. There's not a lot of inspections, and then at that point you can kind of get better at the craft.
Right.
And that's kind of what happened. After a while, after so many projects and rentals, you start getting really good. The finished product, the finishes are coming out really good, right? You starting to find better players, better subcontractors.
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, I think I got the Kobe Bryant of taper float out here.
Yeah.
So now you're able to now do higher end projects there. That's kind of how it's been for me, is the evolution, right? And then eventually you just keep growing.
You mastered your craft for sure.
Absolutely. Chime on the multifamily. I remember during COVID, um, I had just done a big refinance on my portfolio. Like I was literally, I think I had like 5 properties I was going to refinance. Because normally every year I'm always working on, or refinancing 5 to 15 properties. Normally that's about like every year for the last 10 years. That's been kind of my norm. So I was coming, and these are properties that are now, rehabbed. They've been renovated, purchased, and they have a tenant now, and they're producing income because now you can take it to the small bank. And I remember during COVID, now there was a lot of these banks that were not lending on commercial properties, meaning office spaces, um, malls, where normally there's a lot of money being loaned out.
Right.
And I remember where I applied at a federal credit union in Austin, and when they saw my portfolio, because they got to see all your financials, they looked at it and they said, "Hey, man, why don't we just refinance, your entire portfolio or most of it?" And he's like, "It's the same approval. If we approve you for these 5 properties, we, it's like if you want to get approved for 50." So I was like, "Well, just do it." And I remember they came back and they're like, "Yeah, we're willing to do it." And so I ended up like refinancing, I think like 50 some properties, cashed out a few $1 million. And I was like, man, now I'm ready to do multifamily. Like I was like, I've been waiting to transition from single family now to multi. Unfortunately, it was right during COVID, like I mentioned, where now all the investors that were investing in office spaces and all these other commercial properties, now nobody was investing in those. Because
Right.
again, nobody's at work, nobody's at malls, COVID's happening. So what happened was all that money now got pointed, like literally like like a sharpshooter, at apartment buildings. So there was some apartments that had been in the market right before COVID for like 300 days, 400 days. And the day that I literally finished my refinance, and I'm like, man, I'm going to put this money down on an apartment building, because my goal was to get into apartments and I want to be the sole owner of that apartment. I think it was like a 30 unit. I think it was like $3 million. You needed to put down 1 million to get into that type of deal, because the condition was you're going to assume the existing loan. So it was perfect. So I was like, great. So as long as you can put down the 1 million, then you're guaranteed the deal. Well, I remember we put in the offer, and I'm not kidding you, the next day there was like 30 offers. We went to another property, 20 offers, 40 offers, 60 offers, and we're like, holy crap. So for me, it just didn't happen. It wasn't the time for me to get into multifamily.
Right.
So that's the way I saw it, right? And since then, I mean, the last 5 years have been probably the biggest years in my career. So in essence, I'm glad I didn't go that route because obviously all my money would have been tied up, and I would have had to focus on that property until you get it to the level you're
Right.
able to increase the value, and then rinse and repeat. But it's a lot slower project or process
Right.
versus, in my opinion, now what we've done in the single family space. So I figured, I'm just going to continue the single family space until and get better at it, and I think that's the competitive advantage that anybody that's getting into real estate investing is to focus on a niche, right? And get as good as you can at that niche, because that's how you're going to be able to compete with everybody else.
Yeah.
Or you're competing basically, against yourself. So for me, obviously now is doing more new construction, like I mentioned to you, and be able to scale it more than anything. Do it at a scale. I'm not interested in just doing 2, 3, 4 projects of new construction. I'm talking about like how do we buy, and build consistently,
Right.
where every month we're just building a project at a time or two or whatever the case may be, but it's a system, it's a machine. And that's what gets me excited, is to be able to build something and that it works, like you mentioned, just when you were designing your plans and now you're seeing them come to life. My background's actually engineering. I went to school in college for electrical engineering, so I was supposed to be an electrical engineer. Obviously, I dropped out my first year after college. It just wasn't for me. I knew there was something in me that I knew I wanted to do something different. And obviously, I didn't grow up with entrepreneurs parents, and when you grow up with very old school Mexican family, they don't train you to be a businessman.
Right.
So, again, everything happens for a reason. But let's talk about a little bit about the construction side, on the construction management.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that if I personally wouldn't have gone good at the construction side, meaning the construction management, there's no way I would have been able to even make it into this business.
Right.
So how does somebody, start or get good at construction? What do you think are the most critical, important steps that are vital, or skill sets that are vital to be able even to be successful at construction?
Yeah. So skill set, as far as skill sets, like we were talking earlier, I feel like clarity and honesty, that's definitely a skill set that if you're missing, you're not gonna go very far in construction. So just always being honest and clear. And then one of the resources, one of the keys to success, I feel like, to be successful in construction is your subcontractors, right? Your team. So, and we were talking about it earlier, it's going to take a lot of trial and error no matter what. It's almost unavoidable that you have to try at least 5 to 10 different teams before you get one team that you're like, oh man, that guy is really good, because you had to see 9 other ones not be as good, and those 9 others are going to have a reason why they're not as good, and that one is going to have every single reason of why he stands out and why he's the best of those 9. So I guess like just really focusing on getting subcontractors that you can trust and that take care of you, right? Because this is a business at the end of the day. And so you have, I would say, you have many different type of subcontractors, but when it comes to negotiations and management, you have 2 different ones, right? You have the one that is going to tell you a price, and then every 5 minutes that something comes up, they're going to be like, hey, well, we didn't talk about this. It's going to be an extra $200 for this. Hey, it's going to be an extra $300 for that. Hey, that guy doesn't want to help you. That guy wants to help his pockets, right? So definitely find yourself somebody that wants to help you and says, hey, I know we didn't talk about this, but this was here. I'm going to take care of it. Just out of their own morality of construction, just like me, like sometimes I feel like I'm not the best at investing because I fall so much in love with not leaving a home to its original condition. I feel like I have to touch everything, right? And so yeah, just having a contractor that has that sense of care for you not to fail, and takes care of you when you're not looking and when you're not pushing them, and says, hey, I took care of all of this, well, you'll take care of me later. You give me plenty of work. You don't have to pay me the extra $100 or $150, etc.
I think that's huge because I think you got to find people that are not short term minded, right? Because the contractor that's trying to get the most out of you on one project, in my opinion, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Right.
You're probably not going to use them for the next project because you realize, man, I'm lucky we even got this project out of the way.
Right.
And you're a pain in the ass. So, in essence, now that guy doesn't have the next project or back to back because, again, he's short term minded. So, you got to find those contractors that, like you said, they're part of a team. And I think that's what's key is that, when you give somebody the vision and letting them know you're building something and you're looking for that all-star team,
Right.
and all you can do is offer them an opportunity. It's up to them what they do with that opportunity, and that's, I think, the one thing that I do the most, and maybe most people don't know, is that I interview a lot of contractors. I literally I hear the same pitch all the time, from contractors. I can build you a house. I'm a third generation. My dad did it. My grandpa did it. I'm like, man, everybody went to the same seminars. Like it's crazy. But then I tell them, look, we're in the show business, man. You're gonna have to show me your work.
Right.
And once I see your work, then that's gonna speak louder than words. And
Yeah.
we're gonna really see if you're at the level that you claim you are. And I think there's always a disconnect too, because there's levels to everything. There's levels to boxing, there's levels to sports, there's levels to whatever. And doesn't mean they're a bad contractor. They just might not be the right fit for that.
For the level that you're at. Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
And like for example, I was looking for a tape and flow guy a long time ago. And this guy, till today, he's been the best floater I have ever seen in my life. The problem is he took like 2 extra weeks. So for my business model, it doesn't work. I'm doing rentals. I need to go in and out, get these rentals, especially when when I started, I was doing nothing but rentals. So there's no way I would survive, paying somebody an extra 2 weeks, at their rate. So did they have the right skill set? Absolutely. They're better than I haven't met somebody that detailed as of today.
Right.
But they were not the right person for my model, and there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, I thanked him for his time, paid him his, agreement, and, we moved on. Eventually we find the guy that's, good, that's good, but it also has a certain pace, and it's good overall, like you mentioned, and also cares about your business, because they realize, like, man, I also have to make sure that the company's making money, because if not, then I'm not gonna have any work at that point.
Right.
So, like you mentioned, I think that hits home for me, where you gotta bring in people that actually have a bigger vision, and I'm sorry, they see your vision,
Right.
and they want to be part of it. So that's really what I do. What I do is I'm able to paint the picture and let them know what we're trying to do here in the next in the next years, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
For somebody here, like we talked about it earlier, we have 6-7 projects ahead that at this point we're good for the next 6 months, even if we stop acquiring properties today. So that's the type of opportunity that we're offering, and I'm a very loyal person. So as long as you're doing your job and being consistent and doing a good job, then I'm just gonna give it to you. It's that simple. What else do you think, for our viewers or somebody that just never done a construction job and wants to get into real estate investing, wants to maybe do a new build, or a remodel, what actionable tips would you give that person to be able to at least have a fair shot at managing a construction project with no experience?
Definitely don't be shy. Like, don't be embarrassed to speak up, right? Many times we need something done tomorrow, right? And it's all about communication. It's all about communicating with your guys. Hey, I need this to be done tomorrow, or hey, please get this done by tomorrow, etc. Right? So just I guess carrying construction, right? So let me take a little step back, right? So construction is not a weak man sport, you can say, right? So construction is definitely a tough man sport. You need to be firm, and you need to know how to communicate and be clear with people. So definitely build a skill set of being clear and firm with your timelines, your budgets, etc. Because at the end of the day, this is a business, and if you come at people, at subcontractors, softly, we're all men. This is construction. Like I said, they will take advantage of you every time if you don't set the right expectations, if you don't set the right timeline, if you don't set the right expectation for what you expect from them and that project, you will get taken advantage every time.
Yeah, man. Once again, you hit a spot on. I think communication is probably the most important skill set when managing construction, right? Or a remodel project. There's just so many details, so many information that it needs to be communicated, and everybody listens differently.
Right.
So it's learning how to communicate, to different personalities, different people,
Yeah.
different trades. Some people are very old school, some people are visual.
Yeah.
Sending them photos. I even I'll go back to a house, and even though they've done it 10 times, I'm like, I remind them, look, make sure this is the detail, and I might have a photo that I can send them from another project,
Right.
and then at that point now they have a visual.
Right.
There's no excuse, because I think in construction there's just always a misunderstanding, and then they want to blame you. You're the reason why they failed, or
Yeah.
why they made the error. And I once again, as you were talking about that, I was like, man, that's one of the reasons I gone really good at the management part, because that was my background. My background has always been managing teams, managing especially sales reps. I don't know if anybody has managed sales reps, but when you're managing sales reps, these guys have a ability to talk, like
Yeah.
they call it the ability of gab. And man, when that target is pointing at you, you got to be even a higher level,
Right.
because it sounds it sounds amazing. Like those excuses and those responses, you're like, holy shit, you're man, this is Academy Award, man. Like it's amazing. And again, that's why they have that position, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that was my background, and I was able to kind of transition into the construction side, even though I didn't have the technical knowledge or the construction experience. At least I had the communication.
Yeah.
And they knew at that point, like, okay, this guy's jotting everything. He's reiterating everything. He's making sure we understand it. It's just basics. It's just basics communication.
Right. Even
it makes a difference.
Even basics such as the way that you ask for things, right? And my dad taught me this as well, is, see, if you need this thing done by Friday, you can ask in two ways, right? You can not ask, right? But you're paying the subcontractor for his work, time, and material, whatever you're paying him for, and you need that job done by Friday. There's two ways to go about it, right? You can either say, hey, can you please have it done by Friday, et cetera, or you can tell the guy, hey, dude, I need this done by Friday. You have everything you need. Is there anything I can help you achieve that goal to have it done by Friday? And so, just basic communication skills. Because if you ask and you say, hey, can you have it done by Friday? Now that guy, you painted a picture in his head that there is no sense of there's no sense of hurrying the situation, et cetera. And so now he's like, maybe, yeah, I can try to have it done by Friday? And in reality, what sort of control do you have over that project if that was your communication? Can you have it done by Friday? I can try to have it done by Friday. Now, where do you stand as the managing member? Is that project going to be done by Friday? Oh, I don't know. He said he'll try, versus I already spoke to him and we agreed that he'll get it done by Friday. He even needed a couple of screws and I got it for him so that he could have it done by Friday. And that's the deadline we're meeting.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like you said, there has to be urgency, and once again,
That's the word I was looking for.
that's part of the communication, skill set, is to be able to always portray that. And I think with me, if anybody knows me personally, they know everything's urgent. Like it
It's
was
got to be done yesterday.
it was due yesterday. Obviously we filmed some videos in the field earlier today, and you mentioned how's everybody gonna get done tomorrow, and it was that because the expectation was set a few days ago to make sure that they know the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is just to go in there and see if they're on track or not.
Right.
And if they're not, then we got to figure out, well, what do we have to do to get it done?
Right.
Is it material? Is it this? Do we have to stay late? Sometimes even just starting early, and that thought doesn't even cross their mind. And that's your job as a manager or project manager, is to be able to, be on top of it and kind of see where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I mentioned, I think anybody can really manage a project, but it can take you 2 years. It can take you a year. It can take you 5 years.
Right.
You're still going to get it done. The key is, how do you get it done in a cost-effective way where you can actually still make money? But completing the project, I mean, it is not rocket science.
Yeah.
I mean,
You just got to call people and show up.
Sure. So that's the key. It's to be able to set those expectations and then manage it, and then let them know if they're not on track, and then figuring out solutions.
Right.
And I think it's that solution mentality more than anything is what do you need? What do we have to do? Asking better questions, like you mentioned. This is not a weak man sport, man. You have to be stern, and I think that's the biggest challenge that I see out there for new investors or people that haven't done construction.
Right.
Is that they don't have that backbone.
Mm-hmm.
And you need it. You do need that. And trust me, it's, everybody wants to be friends with everybody. Unfortunately, in this business, those people that are too friendly, they're just not going to make it.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be honest with somebody and let them know, hey, this is not the field for you,
Right.
So that might be the reason why they might not complete a project on time, because they're going to get persuaded, and they're going to, whatever the contractor tells them is, going to be the gospel. And it doesn't work like that,
Right.
When I talked about that I lost $30,000 in my first flip, was, I think, now that, when I see it in hindsight, it was because of that. The contractor knew that I didn't have that knowledge. I didn't have that experience. And he could smell it from a mile away, even though I did my homework. I really did. I mean, before I hired this contractor for this project, I checked references. We walked his previous projects. Probably took me about a month to hire this person before I pulled the trigger. And I was making sure, because I was so paranoid that this was my first project and I could not fail. And I remember there was a rehabbers course, and I was following all the guides and do this, do that, get the insurance, make sure they're licensed, you name it. I'm like checking off all the boxes, and I'm like, okay, I have a good gut feeling about this. And boom, we sign the contract, we start the project, and as I'm walking the projects, or the project at that point, I was just one. And I'm seeing what's being done, and I'm not seeing much getting done. But these guys supposedly were there the entire week. I'm like, hey, I think his name was Dan. I don't even remember his name anymore. Hey, Dan, what got that? Oh, no. We reframed all the bracing, this, that, the walls, this. I could not see any of that. So I had to go off his expertise, because, again, he's a professional. He's
Right.
been in the business 30 years. and can talk to me technical knowledge all day, and I'm not going to understand it. So at that point, he's just telling me whatever I need to hear in order for me to give him a draw.
Right.
Well, eventually the budget ran out, and now I have half the project still left, and once again, then they pick a fight on you, and then they take off,
Yeah.
so they want to find an excuse. So, those are again, skill sets, mindsets, and strategies that you need to be able to focus on, in my opinion, to be able to succeed. And like you said, a lot of it is trial and error. I think for me, that's been my biggest, way of success is just failure.
Yeah.
I really can't put it any other way. I'm just not afraid of failing.
Yeah.
And you just get back up and redo it.
Yeah. And I think that's what happens to people too, because this business will take it all out of you. I mean, I know I'm still young, and I have a long road ahead of me, and I'm ready. I'm ready. I know what it takes. I've seen people been in the business for years, and I know the top dogs that are 60 years old and still doing it, and they're beat up, and I'm ready for it. I know that I'm gonna be beat up when I'm older. I'm gonna have a bunch of white hairs or no hair, and that's okay, but just, I guess, be prepared for the fight too. Be prepared for what you're in. This is not easy. It's not something a lot of people and Instagram and our videos, I guess, sometimes could make things seem a little bit easier than what it really is. And so people are like, oh, I could flip a house. I could, and then contractor ran off with your money, and then it's just so much to it, so definitely, like, I've seen a lot of people, especially in Houston recently, I've seen a lot of people get messed around with, man, and it's sad. I've seen women that, have been in very bad situations, have kids, no husbands, and, maybe finally put together a little bit of money, scratched it together, came across the wrong people, put the trust into the wrong people, and lost it all, because they just thought, hey, that's the key to success. So the key to success is having knowledge into where to put your money into, and it's not just the first person you see on Instagram. That's for sure. So for sure, dig into who you do business with, and this is a tough man sport for sure.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the questions I have: do you think, let's say you have two contractors, how important is price compared to quality? Do you see a correlation, or does price doesn't matter? Meaning, just because you're the highest priced contractor, is that going to guarantee you the best product?
Yeah. So actually, me and Nico did a video about this. I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna use this little thing because me and Nico did a video about it, right? So I used the 3-step rule, and one of them is gonna be price, quality, and speed, right? And I feel like you could never, ever get those three in one. So you have to sacrifice one little plant always, right? Mm-hmm. And I always sacrifice the price one. I always sacrifice paying the cheapest price. Why? Because I focus on quality and speed. I need things done great and fast. And so I say almost never go for the cheapest guy, because the cheapest guy, there's a lot to him. There's change orders. There's also not the best quality, and he's probably not that fast, right? He's probably not that busy, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why he's giving you such a cheap price. Good people are not cheap. Good contractors are not cheap. And, so that's what I would say. Like, don't go for the cheapest price. Go for the most quality and the fastest guy. Go for what aligns with your goals. And usually your goals are going to be to get a fast return and get a good product. Now, that doesn't mean you should always pay a premium. Especially as a real estate investor, you shouldn't be paying premium or what a homeowner would pay. So definitely negotiate hard and pay what's fair, but don't go for the cheapest guy, because more than likely the cheapest guy is not going to be fast or good quality.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to agree with that. I'm just thinking back where when I started, and I literally had limited resources, basically, very little money. So my budgets were compared to today, they were night and day. So I had to find whatever resource I can find out there to get my projects completed. Eventually, as I learned, right, that it's better to find a good quality contractor, because maybe the cheaper guy is going to be, like you said, a bigger pain in the ass. He's going to want you to get all the materials, be there, call you for everything, versus the other guy that might have a system, has an assistant, has a couple helpers, and is doing it at another level.
Right.
So you have to factor in your time there. So I'm always willing to pay a premium for somebody that brings in a value proposition, right? Am I going to pay a premium for somebody that, still going to be the slowest and lowest quality? Absolutely not.
Right.
That person might be able to get maybe one job, or I don't even think one job. I mean, if after a week, I just don't see the quality that somebody promised. I mean, in my opinion, they pretty much breach contract.
Right.
They pretty much bullshitting me. So I have no problem letting them go, or letting them know, hey man, I'm just gonna pay you whatever I owe you for this, but you're not the guy that I'm looking for. I made a mistake, and I'm gonna be honest with them and let them know that, hey, we got to move on. I have to bring in the right guy
Right.
to be able to do the project. So sometimes you might have to do that, and like you said, it's trial and error. There's no perfect system until you, uh, you know, try people out and experience different hardships, meaning bad contractors.
Right.
Then you realize what not to hire, right? Not to hire the guy that starts at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m.
Yeah.
is hungover. So that. So regardless if you don't know anything technical about construction,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, well, let's start with basic 101.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't have a truck. This guy doesn't have this, like, and he's gonna build my house. Like that's insane.
Right.
He's coming in a Kia. How's he gonna go get materials in case he needs, a couple emergency lumbers that didn't get delivered?
Right.
So these are all the things. I don't think there's just a one type of one size fits all. There's a lot of variations, but I think with trial and error and experience, you eventually realize, okay, right now, if I needed to, we're increasing our capacity, meaning we're building multiple teams now, so in order to do that, you have to still take a risk.
Right.
Especially right now with our social media, we're getting a lot of contractors and people that, are wanting work, and I'm willing to give them an opportunity, but at the end of the day, they might not be at the level that they think they are.
Right.
And that's I think what our job is just to basically hold that mirror in front of them and let them know, look, like you said, I know you're seeing the videos and this and how easy it might look, but it really is not. And
Yeah.
I take business very serious. I like to have fun and everything, but when it comes to like my construction business and whatnot, they know I'm pretty serious.
Yeah.
And again, unless something is justifiable, it's just not gonna work. So Carlos, man, I appreciate having you as our first guest here on our Limitless Hustle podcast. Hopefully you get to come down to San Antonio, check out more projects. I'm sure after you see the numbers out here, you're probably gonna go back and maybe say, man, there might be some investment opportunities out here.
Right.
In my opinion, I think is the best city to invest in all of, not even just Texas, in my opinion, all the U.S. It's one of the fastest growing cities. Last year was Austin, nationwide. Now it's San Antonio. So obviously there's a reason
Yeah.
for that. So, and everywhere I go, everybody knows San Antonio. Everybody knows the Spurs. Everybody knows the Riverwalk,
Yeah.
the Alamo. So like I mentioned to you, it's one of the biggest tourist cities in all of the world now. Like it's crazy when you actually understand what San Antonio offers and why we're also in the short-term rental space. and be near downtown. So
Yeah.
any final thoughts, anything you want to tell our viewers out there?
Man, I'm extremely grateful that you had me out here, not only to meet you, but on your first podcast. That's it's definitely special to me. I've been following you for a long time now, and so you're a huge inspiration. And I definitely do plan on growing our relationship together, definitely doing business together in the future as well, and seeing the possibilities of how I can invest over here and get you investing over there, and just grow together. I think we have a lot of potential from here on out, man, and I'm excited.
Man, and that's what these podcasts are for, is to be able to build, collaborations and opportunities. That's the reason I'm building my brand and putting, social media out there, is to really reach out to, entrepreneurs and people out there that want to partner up. And, there's so many ways to do that. So, and again, we got to represent for the Latino community too. So,
100%.
hey, man, I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank
being
you.
out here, and stay in touch.
Yes, sir.